think the thing that stands out for me, guys, is that this is a team that just a couple of years ago, and both teams in the World Series a couple of years ago were 100-loss teams. And in the Rangers case, you go all the way through their lineup 1 through 9, you get 3 Ranger products. Everybody else signed or traded for in the last 3 years. You go through their entire 5-man rotation, all of them acquired in the last 3 years, not a Ranger product amongst the bunch. So, to those teams that think you're going to be able to completely build it up internally and not have to look for outside help at some point, it's maybe, but it's going to take you a lot longer. The margin for error is going to be a whole lot smaller. There are the Baltimore Orioles of the world out there, but it's more likely if you want to turn a 100-loss team into a World Series contender in a 3-year window, you're going to have to do it the way the Rangers did it, Joe.
Yeah, and we could go over some of the world champions that we've seen in the past few years, but one thing I do think of is teams that do the tear down and then quickly build it back up. A lot of times we're thinking, wait, this is too early. This was not supposed to happen at this point. This is not supposed to happen right after you get DeGrom, and you don't have DeGrom for the majority of the season. They have so many assets. They have so much money. They were able to get around everything that you would think would derail the season. And that was a monster number on opening day. That was 50-1. There have been 4 teams that have won the World Series since 1985 with a number of at least 50-1. It's the 87 Twins, the 91 Twins, and the 03 Marlins, and now the 23 Texas Rangers. They're added to that group. Of betting perspective, another thing that jumps out is the run of long shot World Series MVPs ends because Corey Seager was a co-favorite going into this with Dolis Garcia. So it wasn't a Pena. It wasn't a Jorge Soler, which we've cashed on in the past. I don't think anybody had a Steve Pearce ticket, but he was a super long shot. It was somebody at the top of the board this time around. But, they just found a way. And the biggest question, Aaron, on this Rangers team, I would say going into the postseason that we talked about was the bullpen. And I think what the Rangers showed you is that if you have a couple of dudes at the top of the rotation, if you have a long lineup, that yes, the bullpen matters a ton, but you only need 3 guys. If you got 3, you're good. You don't need the depth of 6 and 7 guys. If you got 3 that you can depend on, inning 7, 8, 9, you can be all right. People were in on Levis earlier, and then they're diving into that Tennessee win and his performance. Yeah, it was impressive, but it was at home. Impressive, but it was Atlanta, not Pittsburgh. Atlanta, much better defense, but they don't have a Watt character, right? We know that Fitzpatrick is out, but here comes Cam Hayward, as you mentioned. And then the more you look into that, Levis had an explosive touchdown in every quarter. Nobody thinks that's going to happen tonight. 47 yards, 16 yards, 61, a 33-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter. That is unsustainable. And if you look at the passing success rate, it was 29% for Levis. So yes, red zone would pop in, and then you see Levis with a big touchdown to Hopkins again. And that's what people see, and that's what's highlighted. But down to down, it wasn't as successful as you would think, and it's a step up. And now you're going on the road for the first time. So my first thought was, I got to go against Levis. How am I going to go against Levis? But it's the Pickett thing. Do you trust Pickett laying points, Aaron? Right?
I really wanted Pickett to be good, but it doesn't look like it's heading in that direction for his career. I was hoping, but it's just been so inconsistent. I'm not a Pickett fan anymore. The Will Levis thing is interesting. I mean, he obviously gives this team a spark, but everything is going against him. Short week on the road against the Steelers. Really good defense. It's tough to figure out. The Titans secondary, not very good. Maybe the Titans do lean on Derrick Henry a little more in this game. That's why I was like, I'll take a shot on him over on his rushing yard prop yesterday. Today, I'm thinking, who's going to be getting the ball on the Steelers side? Is it Deontay Johnson or is it Pickens? And I lean Johnson here. So I'll be looking at receptions made, which is plus money, and also over his receiving yards. He's gone over his prop in 2 games. I think he's getting healthier. 56.5 is a pretty good number. He's had 89 and 85 and 79, in the last 2 games. Receptions. So 8 for 85 last week, 5 for 79 the week before that, Chris. So I think I'll be keying in on some Deontay Johnson props.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the receptions prop, actually. Over 5.5 is plus 120 at BetMGM. So I get good return on that because they're still without Pat Freiermuth in the pass game. And Kenny Pickett's looking for a direction to be comfortable in. I'm assuming Tennessee's going to use Sean Murphy Bunting to try and take away George Pickens as much as possible. Every team seems to be, when they go up against the Steelers, interested in taking Pickens and his big playability away. Totally understand that. It's been tough for him to get open. It's why people want to see. Mike Tomlin was asked on Tuesday, should George Pickens be getting the ball more? He had a simple one-word answer. Yes, but he's simply not getting open enough because teams are going out of their way to cover him. And so that leaves Deontay Johnson, a very comfortable target for Kenny Pickett. If he can get the ball to him more accurately than he did in a couple situations, including down in the end zone last week, then yeah, I love over 5.5 for Johnson's receptions prop at plus 120. The other thing I'd keep an eye on is anything defensively for the Steelers. I looked it up last night. There was very good return on the Steelers defense to score. I want to say it was a defensive touchdown for the Steelers was something like plus 300. I'd have to go back and look that up to make sure that that's correct. But they're going to do everything they can to force Will Levis into mistakes. I don't think, like we talked about it during the break, I don't think they'll get too exotic with it because they're without Minkah Fitzpatrick, as Joe mentioned. So they'll keep it, I would think, somewhat vanilla on the back end. But TJ Watt, as you guys both mentioned, his brother JJ's coming to town to watch the game tonight. He's going to be salivating at the idea of Will Levis standing back there. He's got Cam Hayward back to draw a little attention in the other direction. When the Steelers win this year, it's because their defense comes up big. TJ Watt has done it several times already this season. He's on a defensive player of the year kind of track. I think it continues tonight. So I would probably sprinkle a little on the Steelers defense to come up with a big play here as well, even score a touchdown, because they're going to have to if they want to win, because their offense is not scoring enough. If they want to win, they've got to force Will Levis into mistakes.
The Chiefs lose as a touchdown favorite, but nobody had them. Division game. They've already been used by a lot of people. Everybody was on some combination of the Chargers Sunday night against the Bears, the Lions Monday night against the Raiders, and then the Ravens. Like that was the top 3 in every survivor pool, and all those were easy. In my pool, which started with over 1,700, and we're at 295 right now, the top 7 in the consensus, the most popular picks, all safe, all won. So everybody's clean. And this is the week that everybody had circled. This is the one that people were worried about looking ahead. Okay, which team are you going to go with? And it looked to be maybe the toughest week of the year to this point. And I would argue it's not as tough as we thought it was going to be, because there are 2 options where there are point spreads above a touchdowns. Those 2 options have almost no future value. You mentioned New Orleans, solid pick going against Bajent. I don't know about the point spread, but as far as just winning the game at home, makes sense to me. And then there's also Cleveland at home. What is a Clayton Tune? I don't know what a Clayton Tune is. I don't think anybody knows what a Clayton Tune is. So these are by far going to be the most popular picks because nobody's used New Orleans or Cleveland, and there's no reason to save them down the road. So you have those 6 top teams that are going against each other, and you can't use them. In most cases, there'll be some nuts out there that use Philly -3. They're like dead set on Dak won't rise to the moment and all that stuff. But I think that's insane. New Orleans, Cleveland's going to be very popular. And I would agree with that New Orleans pick right now. I'm worried about the Bears getting me. I might go with Cleveland. I'm really kind of torn between the 2. I have 1 spot in 2 different pools. I'm probably going to go 1 New Orleans, 1 Cleveland. But here's the other one I want to throw out there that I'm hearing a lot of people talk about because of what went down on deadline day. And it's not the largest point spread. We're sitting at 3.5. There's a lot of 3.5s out there. There are people thinking, all right, Commanders aren't going to try. They're trading everything that's not nailed down. They trade their top 2 defenders. They won't be able to get pressure. The Commanders' secondary is awful. Mac Jones might actually look like a competent quarterback, and there are people jumping on New England. Another spot where would you ever take him again?
Right.
I'm not. I don't want anything to do with that game. It would
I
not.
know.
Rivera as an underdog. Listen, like you could say, oh, what do they have left on defense? The Commanders' defense was awful with those guys. So why are you making that pick based on a trade of Young and Sweat?
Let's turn our attention to Mac Jones.
Yes.
This is going to be an interesting matchup because I've covered the Commanders for years, and they seem to get up for games when everybody. I know it's awful. I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore. When everyone's against them, they seem to get up for games, and so that's what has me thinking twice about this game. 3.5-point underdogs at New England. They trade away Chase Young, Montez Sweat. Their defense was struggling already. What are you expecting here between these two teams?
Well, I'm going to take the play I'm going to go with is Mac Jones. And never love to put money on a guy who's been benched twice in the last month, but that's, I think, where we're at here. And I love the opportunity so much for him. So you mentioned no Chase Young, no Montez Sweat. That removes 10 quarterback pressures per game from the Commanders. And here's a complete list of quarterbacks who have failed to score multiple touchdowns against the Commanders and or top 218 yards. And let me mention, by the way, I'm advocating for over 217 yards for Mac Jones and over the 1.5 passing touchdowns, which is sitting at a plus 180. Plus 180. So here we go. Complete list of quarterbacks who have failed to go over the 217 and the 1.5 touchdowns. Josh Dobbs, week 1, when he was on the team for 2 weeks. That's it. Everybody else since week 1 has gone over. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Charge, Mac Jones sucks. Well, yes, he does. But so does the Washington secondary. They've given up gigantic games to a bunch of other sucky quarterbacks. The Saints bench Desmond Ridder, Tyrod Taylor, and this is just in the last couple of weeks. So if those guys are flying over the overs, I'm very interested in Mac Jones here. This team Patriots can't run the ball. They lost Kendrick Bourne, which is a loss too, but still, I like Mac Jones. The numbers are so low here. I think we can go over.